Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Sir Alex Ferguson Challenge with West Ham. We are going to go forward another 5 years, basically just to satisfy my own curiosity and see how some of our wonder kids finish their careers, because most of them will be in the early 30s by the time another 5 years is gone. So let's go check it out. So rather than go in depth season by season in terms of transfers and stuff, I'm just going to quickly brush over it and see what sort of money they've spent and money they've brought in. Obviously, 6 years down the line, and not a lot of these players are going to be some people you recognise. But we'll have a quick look. Lucas Toussaint is probably the only out that you would recognise. 27.5 million going to Southampton. He's at the grand old age of 34, and they've paid that much money for him. Well, West Ham have done a good bit of business there. They've spent £156 million this summer, and that has netted them second place in the Premier League. So they're still not dominating domestically as we were towards the end of our reign. We'll have a quick check, see how they got on in the Champions League. They got through to the first knockout, quarterfinals, and then semi-final, and then they won. They beat Barcelona in the final 2-0. Gonzalo Campos and Fabio Silva getting the goals for them. Let's move on to year 2. So at the end of year 5, I will be taking a look at the stats, attributes, and what's happened to some of the key players since we left the club. So obviously the likes of Craig Davies and that, we will have a look and see how he finished his career. In year 7, since we've left West Ham, they have just won the league with 100 points, better in our total by 2 points that we achieved with West Ham. So absolutely fantastic result domestically. In terms of transfers and stuff, they sold 156 million worth of players and brought in 194. I spot a name there. Flourier came in for 24.5 million. If you can't remember, he was a right back that I signed that they've then since sold to Stuttgart for 11.5 million, and then they've brought back. So yeah, interesting. In terms of outs, Cottborough left for £76 million to Barcelona. Why are they selling a centre back of that calibre? I don't know. Is he not getting game time anymore? Of course he was getting game time. So who knows? But he's now gone to Barca. And in terms of Champions League, they got beaten in the final by Liverpool this time 2-1. George Menler getting a goal in the 6th minute, but 2 very late goals by Liverpool meant they are now European champions. Right, let's move on to year 3. So in year 8, since we have left for West Ham this season, after finishing 100 points on last season, they dropped down to 3rd. Only 2 points off Man City, who came top with 88 points. But a little bit disappointing to come that far down after getting 100 points. In terms of the Champions League, they did get through the group stage. They did get through the first knockout round. They got to the semis, they got the final, and this time they got beat by Man City in the Champions League final. So 2 back-to-back defeats in finals by English teams. And in terms of transfers, they sold £63 million worth of talent, none of which includes Flourier, who they've now bought back and then sold 1 season later to Newcastle. Spent $99 million on Nikola Rapic. He looks very good. So let's move on to another year, year 9 since we left. So year 9 in terms of transfers, is there any recognised? Eric Aubrey left to go to Real. Why are you letting players go that are signed? Eric Aubrey was of course a big money signing back in the day. We signed him for a huge amount of money and he's developed into an absolutely wonderful centre-half. We signed him for £82 million. Spent a lot of seasons at West Ham, played a lot of football, but has now left to go to Real Madrid for £50 million. And there's no other name I recognise there who I would want to talk about. We will check out who this guy is. Francisco Thiago, £95 million from Real Madrid. An absolutely sensational striker from Brazil. Sorry, not Barcelona. But yeah, he looks good. A lot of money to spend though. I wouldn't have. Of course I would have. What am I talking about? In terms of the Premier League, where did they finish? They have finished in top position, 86 points, a low scoring points-wise division this season. And West Ham have managed to come out on top. How did they do in the Champions League? Did they get to the final? They did not. They got knocked out in the quarters by Man City. So struggling a little bit now, West Ham, although they did win the Premier League. They have lost the last couple of Champions League finals and now didn't even make it past the quarters, where we struggled with, let's be honest. Pep Guardiola is still the manager as we move into the final year that we will see of West Ham. So in the final season we will see of West Ham, they finished 2nd in the Premier League, 5 points behind Manchester City coming top. Man City seem to be dominating West Ham a little bit recently. In terms of the Champions League, where did they come? They came... they got knocked out in the semis by Manchester City, because of course they did. In terms of transfers, is there any recognisable faces on the outs? No. Ricardo Cuellar, I might have signed him, I might not have, I can't remember. They did sign Pedro Pimenta from Bayer Leverkusen for £80 million. A very, very good right winger. But now, for the real reason I'm here, I want to see how the careers of some of our former players went on. Craig Davies is, of course, still at West Ham, 31 years old now. Our first youth intake, our goalkeeper, who's been our goalkeeper for a very long time. 137 caps for England already, and he could realistically have another 5 years in him as a top-class goalkeeper, in my opinion. Technically, absolutely fantastic. Mentally, he was always good, and physically, he looks like he's diminished a little, but nothing too crazy. Craig Davies, one of the major legends of this save. As we move on to one of our best signings of the save, Martin Watkins. He is still at West Ham. He is now classed as a legendary midfielder. 31 years of age, the same as Craig Davies. And he's just unbelievable. His physicals have went down a touch, but mentally he's just world class. Technically he's fantastic. He's made so many appearances since joining us. He's been in the main 11 ever since he signed. If you remember all the way back when we signed him in the January transfer window for £16 million, and he broke his knee or his leg or something quite quickly and was out for 3 months. But it looks like he's been a mainstay ever since, and he is a true legend. Next up, we'll move on to Pavel Kopra, who of course went to Barcelona a couple of seasons ago for £76 million. He has developed into a wonderful centre-half. It looks like his mentals haven't quite matched his physicals in particular, and his technicals are not super great, but he was a super player for us. We signed him for £2.2 million a long time ago. And ever since he came back into the first team after a loan spell at Villarreal, he was a mainstay and another great signing. James Puerta, who would have been a long-term project for me. Look what they've done to James Puerta in terms of versatility. You can play every single position now. Defensive midfield, centre-back, left midfield, centre midfield, right wing-back, right back. He's got it all. But obviously, if we had stayed at the club, his key point would have been right wing-back. His physicals have declined massively. Now he's 33 years old, but he is still at West Ham. He hasn't left the club yet. He's not a first-team player anymore, but he had a very, very successful career at West Ham in the past couple of seasons. His average ratings have declined ever so slightly. So, yeah, he's on the way out, but an absolute legend of a player. We're signing for £500,000. He spent so many seasons out on loan because I didn't have a system that fit his position. Then Celta Vigo geniusly started playing him at right wing back, and when he came back to West Ham, that's where we continued with him, and this was the season he played right wing back. His most successful season ever as a player, 8 goals and 13 assists in 29 games with a 7.64 average rating. I loved this guy, I really did. Eric Aubrey, as we've just seen, has went to Real Madrid late on in his career now. He's 31, £65 million last season. He's had 2 successful seasons at Madrid. A poor sale, in my opinion, by Pep Guardiola. £82 million we signed him for a very long time ago, and he is just one of them world-class centre-halves. Next up is George Mendler, who was a big money signing a long time ago now. £69 million I think were paid. We did. He's had an incredibly successful career at West Ham. Starting to come towards the tail end of it. Didn't start as many games as he probably would have hoped this season. Only 10 starts in the Premier League. He's 32 years old now. 99 caps for Germany. 50 goals is unbelievable. He's still got it. Like, really has. Physically, he hasn't declined that much. He has declined, obviously, due to his age, but mentally, he's unbelievable. Technically, he's still fantastic. And yeah, another top-class signing. Gonzalo Campos, probably the one that got away because we did not play wingers during the time he was here. Obviously, if you can't remember, we're signing him for £1.4 million. He ended up spending 3 seasons out on loan at Napoli because I did not play wingers, but I could not bring myself to sell him. And he has stayed at West Ham post our reign, and he's done very well in the seasons that followed. He's still a world-class winger. Obviously, his physicals as well at 32 years of age have declined, but technically he's stupidly well-rounded. Really, really, really good. It always looks better when he's dribbling with 16 though. Mentally, he's still well-rounded as well, and a bargain of a signing. Fabio Silva was one of the very first huge money signings that we made at West Ham. We signed him for the pricely sum of £50 million, maybe about 3 or 4 seasons in. And he was fantastic for us. Obviously, his stats have declined now. 32 years of age, 129 caps for Portugal, and 103 goals is absolutely unbelievable. He has been training to play anywhere in the attacking line, which has probably improved the amount of game time he's got. 15 starts, 13 subs, 11 goals, 5 assists, and a 7.61 average rating this season. It's actually one of his best seasons in quite a while. Only bettered by a couple of seasons that we were in charge, actually. So, Fabio Silva, thanks, mate. Now, I did expect Sandro Tonali to be retired, but he is not. He's currently at Brentford. He is listed. He's on £135,000 a week. Brentford must be in the Premier League. Surely they are. But yeah, Sandro Tonali, he's completely dead on his feet now. But what a guy this was for us. We signed him for £11.75 million in the third season, I believe. And he's just been unbelievable ever since. He ended up signing for Man City a few seasons ago, went out on loan to Newcastle, then to Brentford for £28.5 million, and he's just a legend. He's honestly, if you ever get the opportunity to sign him on any version of FM with any team, get it done. Another player who we never really saw play for us, but I was interested to see what happened to him, Moussa Kessie. He now is definitely the first choice left back for West Ham, valued at £60 million. Physically unbelievable, mentally good, technically not so good, but he's been excellent for West Ham ever since he's got into the first team squad. We signed him for £275,000 in the season 23-24, and he's been the first choice pretty much ever since we left. He went out on loan to Basel, I think that was us, and then ever since he's come back, he's been a mainstay. Fantastic, and he's 30 years old and he's still at West Ham. We brought in some loyal boys. Mario Tomasa came in and saved us in our final season, and he's still at West Ham. He's made 20 appearances in the Premier League. Physically, he's declined so much. Can you remember his physicals? They used to be unbelievable. But yeah, he's definitely at the tail end of his career at 33 years old. We signed him for £6.5 million from Dynamo Moscow. What's that, second or third season there? And yeah, he went all over the place on loan. Finally came back to us when we had an injury crisis in our final season in charge, and he's been a mainstay ever since. Joshua Wagnerman is still playing at the grand old age of 34. Yeah, he's not very good right now. 34 years of age. He's at Wolfsburg. He's had a crazy career ever since we left. So he went to Watford, then signed for PSG, then for Man City, then to Celtic, now to Wolfsburg. He's been all over the place. But yeah, a great player, a legend of the game. First season signing in the January transfer window, £16 million. He was a mainstay until pretty much the final couple of seasons whilst we were there. And I just thought, I've got to check this guy out. I did want to check out Aaron Martin, but it appears he's no longer in the game. I think that's pretty much it for the amount of players I wanted to check, see where their careers has gone since we left. Fantastic to see the likes of Craig Davies and that still at West Ham all these years later and performing incredibly well. A lot of the players we signed are still at their club. You would have thought a lot more of them would have moved on by now, but they have stayed loyal. I think we built a big enough side to where the point where no team could poach a player from us unless we wanted to sell, and that's one of the reasons why so many of them did end up staying. Pep Guardiola is still in charge of West Ham, but that's going to be it. We are now 10 years in the future for West Ham. They've done fantastically since we left, and yeah, it'll be sad to see the back of this save. If you have enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, and if you're enjoying my content, get yourself subscribed. But until next time, take it easy.